All right, you're right on time for Kirk in the Morning. Good morning, wherever you are watching us from. This is Kirk TV in the morning. We are right to give you what has been happening all through the week. Such a good time to be back again after a very long time out. And this is Kirk in the Morning, where we take a review of what has been happening through the week in matters to do with politics and also business, and even talk on matters to do with health. This morning we'll be talking a lot of politics in regards to the 2022 presidential elections, as well as the roadmap to the August polls. The IEBC giving an audit report of the voter registry and raising some serious concerns in regards to the preparedness towards the general election. We'll be taking a review of that as well, and also there's been a heated debate on the opinion polls on who leads the other on before the August polls, as well as Kenyans being tasked with the task of electing a leader, either from the party or an individual. It is a debate that has been ongoing now, and for many leaders insisting that you have to choose a leader by the virtue, not the party. We will also be talking about that right in a few minutes, but as we always do, we first take a look at what is happening on the roads, and then we come back to continue with our discussion this morning. All right, and just to take a look at what is happening on the roads, and from my map here, I want to just take briefly on what is happening on the major roads. Just to begin with the Thika Road. Thika Road doesn't look so much good, but all through it looks so clear until you get to Muthaiga, where it's the usual culprit of traffic. The Muthaiga Road connecting from Kiambu Road to Pangani all the way in Ngara, entering the Central Business District, doesn't look so much good. If you can be able to avoid that road, then you'll be in a good place. As well as taking a look at Jogoo Road. Jogoo Road doesn't look so much good as you get closer to the Central Business District, entering through the Kamukunji. Doesn't look so much good. That is Jogoo Road as well. Looks smooth all the way until you get past Makadara, all the way to entering the Central Business District. Take a look at yet another road that is a major road, that is Ngong Road. Ngong Road doesn't look so much good. Different traffic snarl-ups at different points, through until Upper Hill, descending down and entering the Central Business District. Looking at Langata Road looks so easy this morning, apart from a few snarl-ups there at the Mbagathi way, connecting through Langata Road and descending all the way to Lusaka Road and getting into the Central Business District. And just looking at Mombasa Road, looks so much good exiting town, but entering the Central Business District, or rather entering the capital city, doesn't look so much good. At the Haile Selassie Avenue, there is so much traffic there and snarled up at different points, of course from Nyayo Stadium all the way entering to the Central Business District. And that is what is happening on the roads, on the major roads. Thika Road doesn't look so much good, as well as Mombasa Road and Ngong Road. So if you can be able to avoid those routes, then you better avoid. And that is what is happening on the roads. Now we take a review of what is written on the newspapers this morning. And with me here, I just have the major newspapers, that is the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper. I'll begin with the Daily Nation. On the top page of the Daily Nation, quite a decorated page there with so many stories to do with politics, and there is the big question there where it is where the Daily Nation says Chebukati under siege. That is, the IEBC said to meet all 4 presidential candidates next week in a dilemma where IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati is a man between a rock and a hard place. His decision to do away with physical voter registration on polling day has come back to haunt him. Of course, that meeting with all the 4 presidential candidates expected to happen next week to make the roadmap to the August polls clear. Ruto's U-turn on CBC, of course, his continued campaigns in rallying the Kenyan people behind his candidature, talking about Deputy President William Ruto has made a turnabout on earlier pledges to abolish the CBC curriculum and instead has pledged to review it. Of course, alongside his Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, who says he will offer state jobs to the weak Azimio aspirants. Of course, in a meeting that is expected today, where President Uhuru Kenyatta will be leading top chiefs of the Azimio la Umoja in a bid to consolidate their support for different candidates in the respective parliamentary, gubernatorial and senatorial seats who are vying on the same ticket from the Azimio la Umoja. And on the top page of the Daily Nation as well is race is on as President Uhuru Kenyatta flags the World Rally Championship Safari Rally that is expected to happen in Naivasha starting today all through the weekend. The Standard newspaper on top of its page, of course, putting loggerheads between Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto, who are the top presidential candidates for the August polls, and talking about what the new IEBC numbers reveal this morning. A newly gazetted list of voters indicates that the two top presidential candidates will each start off with at least 2 million votes in their stronghold as they take the fight to the battlegrounds. That is the Standard newspaper, of course, duplicating the story of the World Safari Rally and going ahead to mention so many stories inside there, so you can be able to grab the copy of both the Daily Nation and the Standard. The People Daily, of course, is talking about on its top page the voter numbers that signal a very tight race where IEBC has finally published the final voters register, and it shows this year's presidential election will be a closely fought one. Now we expect a very competitive election, pitting the Right Honorable Raila Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja and the Kenya Kwanza leader, Deputy President William Ruto. That is a story written by the People Daily and breaking down the numbers on page 2 up to page 5 of the People Daily. And that is what is in the newspapers this morning. Of course, so much to talk about in regards to the 2022 presidential election that is only 45 days away, and there is so much to debunk on in regards to the different aspects and the tactics taken by the leading presidential aspirants to cement their position and also consolidate their support from different regions. The roadmap is very clear, and IEBC at the center of it all, and that is our discussion this morning, how IEBC is prepared for the election, for the August polls, as well as the party politics and the presidential race, the roadmap into the new succession politics of electing the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. And that is where I want to introduce my guest in studio this morning. And on my near right is Douglas Oleso Odhiambo, who is a political strategist. Welcome, Oleso, back again after a very long time.
Thank you so much.
And on the far right as well is Pamela Ateka, is a senatorial aspirant of the Nairobi County under the DAPK Kenya Party. Welcome, Pamela, this morning to the program.
Thank you so much.
And glad to see you, and appreciate you making time this morning so that we can have this discussion. And just to begin with, it's very clear that we are headed for a tough 45 days left. Of course, the 45 days would mean a lot in terms of politics, but there's so much that has come out in regards to our preparedness in getting into the August polls. Just to begin with you, Douglas, you heard what the IEBC put out this week, and giving an update report of the voter registry, and though so many concerns raised in regards to how they've conducted themselves, do you feel that the IEBC is prepared for these August polls?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me in studio this morning. It is always a pleasure to engage with Kenyans, and having been a while for 2-3 weeks on something that is like a culture, it sounds quite a long period of time. So back to today's discussion, and when we speak about IEBC's preparedness as we head into the general election, I think from my perspective is that I'm quite disappointed by the IEBC team, because the 2022 election is not something that they have just awakened to realize that there is an election that we need to conduct. From the onset, IBC knew that there was an election that it was supposed to run, and therefore all mechanisms were to be put in place to ensure that everything runs so smoothly. So the recent announcement by the IBC chair that they are going to resort to using an electronic voter register to identify voters on the election day and do away with the manual register, to me, it tells me one thing, that IBC does not learn from the past. Because when you look at in the past election, be it 2012, 2013 and 2017, we had issues with the electronic register. Mm-hmm. And therefore, IBC saying that they want to do away with the manual register, I think it signals something that we need to be alert on. Otherwise, it could bring chaos.
Okay. And just coming to you, Pamela, you've heard what Douglas has said, and he speaks from a different ground from what you speak as well, because you being a senatorial aspirant and, IBC being a critical element in the coming August polls. And you've heard what they have said this week and the update report of the voter registry audit, as well as, changing their way of conduct from previous elections. Do you feel the IBC is on the right track, to lead towards the August polls?
Thank you so much for this opportunity to come to speak to you and to speak to the voters out there in Nairobi. As you said, I'm a senatorial candidate, no longer an aspirant, because I've been cleared by the IBC. And I'm currently going to run for the senatorial seat in Nairobi. Okay. So if there's any other Azimio candidate, they're going to step down for me, if there's any stepping down.
Because there's that meeting today.
Having said that, let's just cut some slack for IBC. As you know, earlier on, is it earlier in the year, IBC, and also from last year, had been struggling with the funding. And those are issues that have always been there. And who funds the IBC? Those are issues we still, yet to talk about. So, having said that, knowing that IBC has been having problems with funding and not able to meet their timelines in terms of what they're supposed to do, at this moment, they were able to do a test run, and they saw the loopholes that are going to be. So I still feel there's still time. There's still time for them to actually get their act together. And considering it's just a few, is it 45?
It's 45 days.
45 days to the elections. I'm a hopeful person. So I look at I would look at it from the place of hope, because we are going to have this election. There's nothing that's going to stop us from having this election. So we're looking at it from a point of hope. Let's just cut them some slack after they did their test run and they've seen the loopholes that they will have from right now, like they are working on it, and to ensure that you're going to have a free, fair and credible election for all of us.
But don't you think whatever they're working on right now in the remaining 45 days, something they ought to have worked on earlier on, before now the pressure mounts, because we are only less than 2 months away from the elections?
Yes, and basically the IBC problem has always been the funding problem. And that funding problem has always been, it's something that should have been handled in terms of their in terms of their timelines when they do their planning. So I don't think it's majorly their problem, because everything works when there's resources, financial resources, and I think that was the problem.
And just coming back to you, Douglas, the financial aspect, the change of tactics, and also being able to learn from previous elections, because there's so many things that happened in 2017, and even as they were changing the registry from the physical one to the electronic one, they cited that the physical one can be easily manipulated, while the electronic one cannot be manipulated. Are we going to see the same scenario as well? Because this is something that has not been tried, and now they have come with a new tactic. Will that work for them, or how do you see their preparedness in that regard?
Chris, I think what IBC need to know is that it is conducting this election, and we have players in the election. And from what I've seen in the last week or 1 or 2 weeks in the past, I have seen that both players, especially the leading presidential formations, that is, you talk of Kenya Kwanza, you talk of the Azimio, you also talk of the Wajakoya. They are all pointing to one thing, that let us have a manual register just in case the electronic one fails. Mm-hmm. But IBC insisting that we have to go electronically because the manual register was open to manipulation in the past election. I don't think that is within the law, because even the court, the High Court of Kenya itself pronounced that IBC needed to have a manual register backup just in case the electronic fails. Mm-hmm. So IBC going against the orders, or rather the interpretation it sought from the High Court, then leaves us wondering, why is it not that IBC will follow what they sought for interpretation in the High Court? Because the High Court gave them direction of what they need to do just in case the electronic system fails. But now that they have resorted to the electronic system, and we are asking them, this is common. In this country, not all parts of the country are covered by the 3G network. Mm-hmm. And now, the areas that cannot access the 3G network, what are you going to do? They have given us some sort of, we are going to deploy, I don't know, satellite, whatever. But then also, when they call for the stakeholders meeting, I think last Wednesday, to just to familiarize the players on how this thing is going to work, it failed. Mm-hmm. So if that thing could fail in Nairobi during the mock transmission and of the election results here in Nairobi, what will happen if the same thing is tried on the election day somewhere in Moyale, mm-hmm. somewhere in Lamu, or part of the northeastern Kenya where network connectivity is not that strong? Mm-hmm. So these are things that are raising concern to us as Kenyans, and IBC must assure us, because we cannot afford to go into this election not so certain if these things are going to work.
Pamela, as a senatorial candidate, are you worried of such a situation?
Basically, systems are meant to fail, and systems do fail. Okay. So I don't even think that we actually should be having an argument on this, because technology is not something that you can actually rely on 100%. Mm-hmm. And IBC should actually have a backup in terms of a manual register, mm-hmm. to ensure that if the system fails, mm-hmm. they have a backup for it. So as a senatorial candidate, that's something that I don't even think we should be having.
It's a worry.
It's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. It's a totally no-brainer. Okay. Yeah.
Does it? Do you say a free and fair election if IBC picks the way that they have picked?
Well, what I would do, I would look at Chebukati as a person, mm-hmm. and what kind of legacy he would like to leave. And you remember the past elections we had when everybody was like going, is it Isaac should go?
Mm-hmm. Isaac Hassan.
Isaac. Mm-hmm. And have you noticed that lately we don't have that? Mm-hmm. That Chebukati should go. We've not had a Kirama for that, have we? No, right? Okay. So I think he somehow he's doing something right, mm-hmm. somehow, mm-hmm. for guys to kind of like give him the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm.
Actually, from what you speak is that Chebukati hasn't received yet the pressure to be able to leave office. I don't know what that would mean, but as well we are looking at the top presidential seat as the one that is so much focused on IBC preparedness. But we forget that even the members of parliament, the gubernatorial seat, as well as the senatorial seat, also depends on the IBC for free and fair elections. So right now, as you look at things the way they are, the presidential election is already piling pressure on the IEBC, because even the transmission of the elections, of the voter registry through electronic is because of the presidential tally. So for you as as a senatorial candidate, you look at all those grounds, and what do you take of all that?
Let me tell you about systems and organizations and what I know. And that's why I'm talking about Chebukati as a person. Because, you see, organizations do not run themselves.
Okay.
They are run by people. And the buck always stops at a person. Looking at also at Kenya as a country, because we're also talking about the presidential elections, and our country, we love the presidential elections, and we look at the presidential candidates, because that's just a thing that we do love as a country. So for me, I look at IBC as Chebukati too. You know, like, it's like looking at a country and the president, because the buck usually stops at the president. Right now, when we're looking at IEBC, the buck stops with Chebukati. And Chebukati, for me, I think he's doing his best. He's trying to do his best so that he can leave a legacy, and he can sort of like clean up and make IBC a more trustworthy organization that it should be, because elections and the electoral body is about, I mean, for Kenyans, it's about trusting the electoral body, that the electoral body would actually run these elections. They will be credible, they will be free, they will be fair, and if there will be any complaints, this will be minimal. And that's what I think that Chebukati is trying to do at this moment, and that's why I'm like really centering on, you know, Chebukati as a person, because organizations don't run themselves. It's people who run them, and the buck usually stops at the head. Okay.
You've talked about Chebukati putting trust for the Kenyan people to be able to trust the IEBC. But the trust issues are very real and imminent issues that are visible, as well as from what they talked about the start of this week, IEBC raising concern in regards to voter registry, that there were some voters transferred into different polling stations, and as well as talking about the youth not being able to register as voters in the coming August polls. And before I come to you, Oleso, let me welcome Bikwa Shoya, who just came in this time. Welcome to the program. Thank you. We hope that you will compensate the arguments that we had before you came in. So that means you will have to speak twice. But anyway, let's just proceed. Douglas, the issues raised by IEBC in regards to transfer of voters and the young people not coming out, you know, to register as voters, despite the initial register showing that the youth are the majority in that voter registry. Is that a worrying situation, if at all we need to have an transparent election?
Okay, I'll start with the issue of the youth being not being able to turn up in their numbers to register as the electoral process. First of all, you know, when you speak of the youth population, the global definition of what a youth is anybody below the age of 35 years. So even somebody who is 5 years is still a young person. But we are looking at it, people who are eligible to vote. That is people in the age bracket of 18 to 35 years. So when you look at it in that age range, you realize that it is not the 65% or 70% of the Kenyan population of young people as we speak. Narrow it down to the age of 18 to 35. Then you notice that it is not that large number as we may think when we speak of a youth population being 65%. But even as it is, taking the people under that age bracket, we've seen that there is some disinterest of that population to come up and participate in the voter registration and subsequently turning up to vote. One, I had I engaged some young people somewhere before, during the voter registration exercise, And I was puzzled by the idea that they were waiting actually for politicians to come and bribe them so that they can go and vote. I mean, they can go and register. And I was like, why haven't you registered? They say, I will go and register, but I'm waiting for somebody who will come and give me something so that, and also facilitate me to go and register as a voter. That informs you that if these young people will wait to be bribed to go and register, also during the election day, then it means that suppose somebody doesn't bribe them to go and vote, they may not end up voting. So the back squarely stops with IBC because we need adequate sensitization to the young people that, look, the process of electing leaders is squarely tied to your future. And your future depends on who you elect in office today. You will complain for the next decade if you do not actively participate in the process of electing the leaders today. But the second point on having voters transfer, abnormal voter register, and some voters being transferred, personally, I think I haven't heard clearly of physical people complaining that I registered in polling station B, let's say I registered in Langata, but I've realized that my registration details have been taken to Kangemi. I have not heard of that. So serious questions are also being asked about who are these voters that have been abnormally transferred from the IBC register. Because in 2017, we, those of us who are in NASA, insisted that within that IBC register, we had ghost voters, maybe who were used to the advantage of our opponents back then. So could it be that the same ghost voters are the same that are being transferred from one station to another? Because I haven't heard any Kenyan who has complained that my name has been registered transferred illegally. We are waiting for that to come up, and if it doesn't, then maybe my fear could be confirmed to be true.
What is your fear?
My fear could be that in this register we still have ghost voters, people who don't exist. And one of the things, again, maybe just as I close on that, is when the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya went to the media to complain that about 1 million of his supporters had been transferred illegally from the register. Even before the IBC chair himself confirms that, I was interested to know, Bwana Deputy President, the voter register has not been published yet. How do you know that information? How do you know that these were your supporters? How comes it is not Odinga supporters? So to me, as a curious voter, I tend to think that maybe these were numbers that worked to your advantage in 2017, and now you are noticing that they are squarely disappearing from your grip, and now that there is that panic. I may be wrong though, but maybe time will prove that right.
Sure. What do you take of that?
I'll start by weighing in on what my sister here talked about, the integrity of the process, and the integrity of the process being tied to the systems that have been put in place, and also the people that we have entrusted with those systems. And that is why she was talking about taking the blame squarely to Chebukati's door. So over and above the systems that we've put in place, we may have very good systems, but then we do not have the goodwill of the people that we've entrusted with the system to execute it in the best way that we think they should. So yes, we've over time been working on the systems, that is the IEBC, to ensure that then people have trust. But then also the other problem that has been ailing us for a very long time has been the people that we have entrusted with those positions. And that is why you realize that after every, during every electioneering period, we either want, there's an agitation to change the chair, or to change the CEO of IBC, or to have the commissioners, changed, or something like that, or or the ICT guy. We also what happened with Msando in 2017. So it's about the systems. It's about the people that we have entrusted with those with those processes for purposes of execution. just to weigh in on what my my good friend from Azimio, now that he's pro Azimio, from what he's saying, and it still speaks to the systems that we have that we have put in place. If we are questioning the integrity of or even the register that is there, then it becomes automatic that we will equally question the results of those systems, because if we are questioning them right now, then we will definitely question them at the very tail end. Then lastly, on the issue of youth and the issue of the enrollment to voting and why there's been that apathy, I think the youth have not just realized, just like my colleague has said, that the political actions that we take right now have a very big impact to the future that is to come, insofar as the political decisions are concerned, fiscal decisions are concerned. Even these positions that they're saying that ultimately youths are not being employed. Mm-hmm. If you never participated in the decision of who becomes the president, and you never interrogated their manifesto, you never interrogated what their aspirations are, then you definitely are closing that to complain in future that things are not working your way, because in any event you never participated in putting those leaders in those offices. So it is something that that we as youth have to very actively either talk to one another as of now, because that decision has to be made now and not tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I think that is a good point to make. And just coming to you, Pamela, you've heard what Douglas and Shoya have been able to raise in regards to the youth law voter registry, as well as the transfer of the ones that have already registered. What do you take of that now, being you are at the center of it all? Because if someone now transfers your 1,000 voters, that means they are killing you politically. So what do you take of that?
First, I think we should be very concerned as a country. We should be very concerned that we have a population, a youthful population that did not register as voters. And it is crazy, because how did we, go through the civic engagement period without civic education? How did the youth, how have the youth socialized themselves to understand that during elections it's time for them to make money? It's I'm concerned as in what kind of a society are we becoming, that our young people do not understand that it's their civic duty not only to register as voters, but not to also vie for elective posts, as well as just get involved. And it's not a money-making time. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to clean up the electoral processes and the electoral laws, and ensure that with time we legislate that if you do not register as a voter, there are repercussions for it. Yeah, sure. Because if we are going to become a country where youth think that when it's time for elections, it's time to make money, then that's crazy.
I remember, and if I can just weigh in, I remember there's a time when we were when there was this whole debate that why can't we, at the point of issuance of the national identification cards, why can't we subsequently issue voter registration cards, or why can't we enroll persons to be voters as at the time when we are giving them national identification cards, the national IDs? And I think it was a valid conversation as of that time, and I think it should be a conversation moving forward that we may need to interrogate and probably just see its viability, so that one becomes automatically a voter upon attaining the age of 18 and acquiring the national ID card, so that then we don't have a whole process of one being given the national ID, and then we come and again engage in another process of one again registering as a voter. So probably it's high time that we have that conversation, so that at this population that is the youth, or this population that is that has become, that has attained the age of majority, we no longer have that discussion of have you registered as a voter. You automatically become a voter upon acquisition of a national ID, and then thereafter we may put other mechanisms to ensure that then these persons, so that there is an integrated register between the register of persons and the register that is that is being held by the IEBC. I don't know, and probably that is the kind of conversation that we had during this Uduma number thing. Yeah. So probably with time we are going to have, if Kenyans are going to embrace the Uduma number thing, then we are going to have all these information in one repository, and it will be easy even for the coordination by the government.
Okay.
Yes.
Oleso, do you have anything to add on that?
I think Wakili Biko has summed it up, because ideally I don't see the need why somebody will get an ID and then later on you say because you have an ID you need to register. I think this thing can be done at one phase and we complete the whole scenario. But most importantly, just registering as a voter is not enough. You need to turn up and vote, because that is where the decisions are made. Countries like Brazil, for instance, I was sharing with a friend of mine from Brazil, and she was telling me that in her country, once you attain the age of 16, you are eligible to vote, but it is voluntary. You can vote, but it is voluntary. But when you click the age of 18, it is mandatory for you to vote. It is mandatory for you to vote. And if you don't vote, you must give a valid reason in writing. So I think that will work in Kenya, because right now we are battling with a youthful population that is so much resistance to things unless pushed by the law. So probably we may be forced to get to a point where we legislate and ensure that everyone participates in the decision making, so that we don't end up with a population that complains about today's leadership when they didn't participate in the electing of these leaders.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I came around something that was saying if I told the IBC wanted the youth to register, then they ought to have cleared Wajakoya very, very early. Before this late, they ought to have cleared Wajakoya very early.
Wajakoya is not here.
Does it mean that many youths associate themselves with the ideologies of Mr. Wajakoya?
And it's not to the DP.
Since it relates with most of them, but now the question is whether they will still vote. But that is a big question. And now coming to yet another matter that has been, at the center of what we are saying right now, 45 days to the election, is about the politics of numbers. Politics of numbers. Even as IBC talks about the voter registry, is also giving an outline of what the numbers look like in different regions. And if you look at the strategy and also the criteria of the top presidential aspirants, that is the Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga and the Deputy President William Ruto, who is leading the Kenya Kwanza, it is very tactical and very specific. This is where we are targeting. For instance, you see frequent visits in Mount Kenya region, frequent visits in the coastal region, the Ukambani region, and the western Kenya. That is to show how mighty those regions are in determining who the next president is. So if you look at it, Biko, in this aspect where we have the two top presidential candidates, visiting some specific regions in a bid to rally the support from that region, while at the same time the Kenyan at large are having the task of looking at what does this leader have to offer to us. So now it's a politician now going against the numbers, while the Kenyans now look at what can we get from this politician. How are you seeing that as a patriotic Kenyan and as a person who perhaps would vote in the August polls?
let me tell you, Chris. Politics is a game of numbers. I know it's a cliche, but then it is the truth. Politics is all about numbers. It's about the people who will wake up that morning to come and vote for you. It's about who is going to attain the highest number of votes. Let me give you a very good example. During the nominations that just concluded a few weeks ago, and I participated extensively in the nominations of ODM. In the ODM nominations, we had some very good candidates who are upcoming, who are never participated in the nominations of ODM. They had a strange way of picking their candidates this time around, because they were saying that it's only ODM registered members who are going to participate in the nominations. And while other candidates who are not privy to that information, that it's only ODM members who are going to participate in the nominations, they had rallied each and every person within within their constituency to come and vote for them on that particular day, only for them to realize that they had on the nomination day that it is only ODM members. And yet persons who had participated in ODM activities before understood that information, and they had rallied persons who are only registered members of ODM. So you would find that you go to the voting stations, and you are locked out because you are not an ODM member, and because your opponent had rallied ODM members, and they even went to the lengths of confirming whether these people were actually registered ODM members or not. So you find yourself being defeated by someone who is more organized, because they knew the rules of the game, unlike you who went and rallied every Tom, Dick and Harry. It is the same thing that is going to happen, that is going to play out in the general election coming up in August. One, you have to understand what every region brings to the table insofar as the numbers are concerned. So if Western has for instance 5 million registered voters, you would be more interested because those are already registered. It matters not how many, the population of the people in Western. What you are interested in, how many of that population is registered as a voter. And what reason are you giving them to turn up on August 9th to come and vote for you? So it's all about numbers. And if you do not understand, if you don't understand the numbers per the various regions, then you're not in this game to win. You are not in politics to win. You have to understand the numbers.
Pamela, the politics of numbers. You can see the frequent visits. Of course, the major one being in Mount Kenya. I think the deputy president has made over 24 visits there, while Odinga has made almost 17. And all the same is a bit to rally their supporters from that region to bring together the votes in one basket. The politics of numbers, how are you seeing it playing out in the August polls?
Yes, politics is usually about numbers, but there are also other factors that come in apart from the numbers. And we'll see, like in this election, the Azimio candidate actually picked a woman as a running mate. And that has caused a great change, especially to women too. There was a lot of, there was a group of undecided voters in this election, and most of the women that I know, let me just give you a story. Last year we had this training with FIDA, and we came women from 47 counties who were aspirants to run in various positions. And after the training, we're staying in a hotel, and we decided that the women of this hotel are going to start a WhatsApp groups so that we can keep together, encourage each other to vie for office as time goes on. With time, we went through the nominations. We were cleared by IBC. and we are still intact. So I will tell you right now, there are women who are candidates in the 47 counties. Women are going to be in the ballot, and they are going to change stuff in terms of voters. Because this time round, apart from the numbers, it's also going to be agenda. Many male folk are planning to vote in women. Many women folk are planning to vote in women. So it's going to be a very interesting election to watch. Not only from, and even like what you're saying in terms of the numbers, say like Central, I think they're also going to look at the Azimio, Azimio favorably. Because one, not only is there going to be a woman deputy president, she is also credible. She brings in a lot more than has been before in previous elections. There's a level of trust coming also into play. So when it comes to mobilizing the numbers on the 9th of August, I think the Azimio candidate is going to have an easy time because of that. Because of the trust issue, because of the gender agenda, and also the numbers are going to come in for her. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, to add on the issue of where the numbers matters most, I think just like my two colleagues have said, this election and just like the previous elections, numbers will matter most. And it depends on how are you organized to garner these numbers. You've seen, of course, the DP has made, to be precise, I think 36 visits to the mountain against Odinga's 15. But these are the two leading presidential candidates. And I will say that one has been on the campaign trail for 4 good years. We can actually say 5. And Odinga launched his presidential bid and started formally campaigns late last year. So you can see the number of visits that the DP has been able to make to the mountain. At some point, I even started imagining that maybe it's only Mount Kenya that is going to hold the general election, because that is where he focused his campaigns, because he knew that that is where he needs to get the numbers to help him ascend to power. But what are the realities? The realities are this, that for the very first time, Raila Odinga is receiving a positive audience in the mountain, unlike the previous elections that he has been contesting. There was a time in history that anybody in Mount Kenya, if you will dare mention Odinga's name, people will look at you in a very strange way. But today, out of, let's say, 10 people from the mountain, you can arguably, when they're arguing 10, you can easily identify 4 of them supporting Honorable Raila Odinga, and they're from the mountain. That tells you that the mountain, with its numerical strength, is going to play a major role in deciding who becomes the President of the Republic of Kenya. And when we narrow down this analysis to the 2 leading presidential candidates, then I think maybe, in my opinion, despite the fact that I support the Azimio faction, the numbers favor Odinga. My sister here has also added the idea of the gender agenda. And I was one of those people who are really praying that Odinga goes ahead to pick Honorable Senior Counsel Martha Karua as his running mate, so that they can close this game by 8 a.m. And I think that is coming to be a reality. If we were to go by the recent campaigns that we are seeing, she's of course a woman who believes in what she undertakes, and many people observe this as a group of people of the same history. We can see reformist grouping on one side, and the people who don't like reform so much, or rather people who are trying to be reformed back then and they were not willing to be reformed, also on one side. So Kenyans looking at
speaking in tongues.
No, it is a fact. It is a fact that in the Azimio faction, when you look at most of the people in Azimio, they were people who were pushing for the reforms in late 80s and 90s during the Moi regime. And when you go to Kenya Kwanza, you will find those people who are trying to be reformed and they were not willing to be reformed also grouped in that faction, starting with the deputy president, and he's running it as well. So at this point, Kenyans are looking for good leadership. And when you look at good leadership, we must look at the past, the present, and then the future. One faction does not want you to discuss about the past because they were the anti-reform regime. And another one says, look at our history, look at who we are today, and look at where we want to take you. So if you link that with the numbers, then I have no doubt in my mind that the Azimio faction, and with my sister here also running as a senator for Nairobi, or within that faction, we are going to have, number one, from the government, number two, a lot of women into office, courtesy of their record, and also what the coalition stands for, because we stand for good governance. So it is my prayer that that is going to come to be a reality.
So talking about the politics of numbers, that is about the Mount Kenya region being at the center of it all. But again, we also see the Western region being a very strong pillar, despite being indecisive for the past two general election. And coming to you, Biko, you've heard also talk about the Mount Kenya region and the running mate factor that is also contributed to the numbers. But we have the Western region, while the Kenya Kwanza has Musalia Mudavadi, has Moses Wetangula, and they also have a task that they have to fulfill. Of course, the 70%, votes for the Kenya Kwanza. That is also about numbers. Are we seeing a Western region that is for once going to vote as a unit in regards to, fulfilling their numbers?
If whoever has Moses Wetangula and whoever has the son of Mudamba, that is Mudavadi, will definitely get some votes. We can't really underestimate the influence that they bring with themselves to whatever fold of the two coalitions they are in. But then the question that I've asked myself over the years is how many votes can they bring into whatever coalition that they're in? Seeing as they're in the Kenya Kwanza coalition right now, we then would want to ask ourselves what is Wetangula's influence beyond Bungoma? What is Mudavadi's influence beyond Vihiga? How have they performed previously in the previous elections? I would give you a very good example. If you look at the previous elections, let's take, for instance, the county that is Vihiga. Has Mudavadi even produced a governor from his own backyard over the years? The answer to that, of course, is a no. Then we want to ask ourselves, what is his influence even within that particular region? Because then you see, if he can't give us a governor even from his own county, then how then are we going to entrust that he's going to give us a governor, let's say in Kakamega County? Over the years, ODM has produced a governor in Busia. ODM has produced a governor in Kakamega. ODM has produced a governor in Vihiga. ODM has previously produced, and even right now has produced, a governor in Bungoma. We are talking about the counties in Western Kenya. So has Azimio's or has Raila's vote been affected by the migration of these two leaders to Kenya Kwanza Alliance? My answer to that is no. Raila's support in Western Kenya is still very intact, and even the people, because I'm talking like that because I equally come from Western Kenya, and I have my friends and I have my friends and relatives down there, and I keep on asking them, so how has the migration of these two guys to Kenya Kwanza affected the Raila Odinga vote? And they're telling me it is insignificant.
Okay.
It is insignificant. So I can say very authoritatively, and especially from the information that I've collected from the ground, that Raila's vote is still very intact. We can't also underestimate the influence that the DP Ruto. In fact, if the DP Ruto is going to, or if Kenya Kwanza is going to get votes from Western, it is not because Moses Wetangula and Davadi have joined his fold, but it is because people believe in whatever it is that William Ruto, him as a person, has told them. Because of course, just like you said, he's made several trips to Western. And people will, if there are people who are going to vote for the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, it is not because of these two guys having joined Kenya Kwanza Alliance, but it is because they are voting for Kenya Kwanza because of His Excellency William Samoei Ruto.
Okay, and talking about that, before I come to you, Leso, of course, I understand President Uhuru Kenyatta is said to convene meeting with the Azimio la Umoja chiefs as well, to be able to discuss and consolidate different candidates that will be running under the Azimio la Umoja, but with different parties, and making sure that they come into agreement with one candidate. And that's why I want to release Pamela, because she perhaps may be running into that meeting.
She'll be affected.
She might be affected. Someone might step down for her, so we expect to wait and see what will happen later on.
Yes.
So Pamela will release you so that you can rush for that meeting as we continue with the discussion.
No, but she can just weigh in on that before she
I
leaves.
go, let me
she-
just weigh
yes.
in on that. There's a new kid on the block,
Okay.
a new party called Democratic Action Party. It is the fastest growing party in Kenya, which I belong to.
In East Africa as well.
And in Nairobi alone, we are fielding candidates. We have 17 MPs and 47 MCAs. And I'm running as a senator. So you can imagine that in this basket, Azimio also has staff. So we are, as in in terms of the Western vote, Azimio has a large percentage, basically.
Right.
Thanks.
I think there's a point that you make before you run out as well because of that meeting of Azimio. So we are going to take a very short break so
And
that we
somebody's
release
talking.
Pamela, she can be able to catch that meeting. And then when we come back, we continue with our discussion as we conclude on what has been happening through the week in regards to the roadmap to the August poll. So we take a very short break and then we return back in a few seconds.
Communion with a difference. It's easy to set up, no worry of spills, contamination or waste. Prepared with very high hygienic standards and strict quality dedicated equipment. You are rest assured that pre-filled Holy Communion elements are completely protected. We deal with pre-filled communion elements for churches in Kenya and East Africa like the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, CITAM, among many others. The advantages of the pre-filled elements are cost-effective, convenient, portable and ideal for use in virtually any environment, less preparation work, completely hygienic, and we have both altar wine and altar juice. Order now by calling us or sending us a WhatsApp message on 07999 88371. Visit our website www.holycommunionelements.com.
The moderator of the PCEA 23rd General Assembly, Right Reverend Patrick Thegumutahi, together with PCEA Nendeni Board and Kembu Presbytery, invites you to PCEA National Mission in Kitui Nendeni area from June 22nd to 26th, 2022. The mission will reflect on the theme, Considering Coming to Jesus for Rest, Matthew 11:28. Join us as we engage in various activities such as door-to-door evangelism, open-air crusades, teachings, evening revivals, borehole dedication that will later be culminated with the Sunday worship service at PCEA Katulani.
Join us this Friday for the very best of praise, worship, and fellowship. Kirk TV and PCEA Baraka Parish, Macedonia welcomes you to an overnight Kesha this Friday, 24th June 2022 from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. The session will be hosted by Reverend David Mudhui, the parish minister.
If we are going to be steadfast, if we are going to be hopeful in times of suffering, in times of hopelessness, we must learn to rely on God.
The Kesha night will reflect on the theme, Overcoming Barriers to My Destiny, from the book of Genesis 32:24. Don't miss an exciting praise and worship experience that will be graced by guest singer Njeru Thiga. Join us live on Kirk TV on Signet, Kirk TV Kenya on Facebook and YouTube to fellowship and have a fantastic interaction with us.
My name is Moaz Jamal. I'm the Managing Director of Associated Motors Limited. Associated Motors introduced the Isuzu brand of commercial vehicles into Kenya a little over 55 years ago. We've been with Family Bank a little over a year now. We've had a very good experience. There's always interaction between ourselves and the team at Family Bank. They've worked with us very much as part of the AM family. As a partner, they've always wanted to understand our business. In many ways, the name of the bank reflects what they do.
Our customers are family, and we want you to know that you can always bank on family.
All right, welcome back again to Kirk in the Morning. In case you're joining us, this is where we take a review of what has been happening all through the weeks in matters to do with politics, and we've been discussing on the IEBC preparedness and the roadmap to the August polls. Of course, so many concerns being raised on how the IEBC is prepared for that election, talking about the recently audit on the voter registration and talking about 22.1 million voters on the final list despite 27 million eligible voters. And just coming back to my panel here in the studio this morning, on the near right is Oleso Odhiambo, is a political strategist, and the far right is Biko Ashoya, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. 22.1 million registered voters on the final list against 27 million registered voters. Do we see that as a big worry in regards to, the election, rather the presidential election, not going for a runoff?
I don't think if we are going to have a runoff in this coming election, from where I sit at least. Because, Chris, if we have to, there is a difference between propaganda and the reality. And the perception that has been created is that there's a fashion that imagines that they have the numbers. But what are the realities when it comes to the numbers that are present based on what IBC gave us just the other day? Before we took a break, I think Wakili Biko was raising a very important point here about the support that the Azimio presidential candidate enjoyed in the western part of Kenya, and whether that support has been eaten into by the Kenya Kwanza Brigade. His answer was no, and I also would want to say, or rather share the same sentiments. In the 2022 general election numbers, we can considerably say that we can relate how the numbers were in 2017 and what we project that could be the numbers in 2022. In 2017, the pair of President Kenyatta and the DP Ruto got some votes from Western Kenya, the pair of the two leaders. Of course, with the help of people like Eugene Wamalwa, who played a critical role in delivering the Trans Nzoia vote. And when we come into 2022, and maybe if we were to keep the factors, or rather the numbers constant, that William Ruto inherits the numbers that they did in Western Kenya in 2017, which I doubt, because Azimio has done a good groundwork in Western, and the number of votes that Jubilee got in 2017, when you compare with the number of William Ruto that he may get in 2022, maybe the numbers could be slightly lower than that. But at the same time, if you say that Western was Raila's stronghold and DP may eat into it to a smaller percentage, we also look at it in terms of how about the DP's traditional strongholds and what is the significance of Odinga's support in those regions. We will definitely keep our focus on Mount Kenya as a traditional region that the DP needs to retain the same number of votes they attained in 2017 to be able to be on the safer side when it comes to the presidential race. And I have tried to use to look at it from different angles. And I think my analysis tells me that there is no way William Ruto can retain the same number of votes they got in 2017 in Mount Kenya. There is no possibility. And in terms of what then is the support of Raila Odinga in the mountain? For the first time, we have elected leaders in Mount Kenya campaigning for Raila Odinga. For the first time, we have lots of groups coming up and saying that, look, we need to look at Raila Odinga from a different angle, from Mount Kenya. And if you put that, and also maybe you relate it to the past by-elections that have happened in Mount Kenya. Of course, Jubilee has participated in the by-election in Mount Kenya, but of course it has lost to UDA. But could that be a pointer to how the presidential race could shape up in Mount Kenya, to me it's a yes. How? Because let's say if we were to go to Kiambaa or even the Juja by-election, parties affiliated to the DP Ruto managed to carry the day. But it is not about the victory. Look at the numbers that the Jubilee Party was able to marshal in those by-elections. And you can relate that the same scenario could be in the case of the presidential election, because the people who are voting for Jubilee knew that Jubilee is a party that is associated with the Honorable Raila Odinga, and voting for a Jubilee is the same as voting for Raila Odinga's candidature. And you notice that the election could be, UDA could get around 48, and Jubilee will come in closely at around 45. If the same trend continues to the general election, then I'm afraid somebody may not even be able to get 30% of the presidential vote in the coming election. I'm so certain about that. And lastly, because of course we've said we have 60%, and we are still doing more groundwork to that effect. Lastly, still on numbers, I think also the choice of running mates in a way affected the presidential candidate's popularity. And I think Raila Odinga the fifth, his choice of running mate must have been very significant to the people of Mount Kenya. And I think when you compare it to DP's running mate, I think you can be able to tell that Mata may be able to bring votes on the fall than what Gachagua could do in his own capacity.
Okay, and just coming to you, Biko, it's a politic of numbers. 2.4 million support for Deputy President in the Rift Valley region. 2.1 million support of Right Honorable Raila Odinga from the Nyanza region. Those are the two strongholds of the top leading presidential candidates. But now the focus shifts into the battlegrounds for their consolidation of voters to be able to clinch the 50+1%. That was a total of the general election. So now, if you look at the deputy president starting with his 2.4 million, home support, assumingly, and 2.1 million of Raila Odinga from the Nyanza region. Now, each one of them now needs the entire basket to be filled from the battlegrounds. Are we seeing areas where they have made frequent visits being battlegrounds?
Yeah, definitely. You see, just like you've rightfully said it. You see, the Rift Valley is on the ballot as president. Nyanza is on the ballot as president, and of course, definitely that one then says that you see those are their strongholds. That is their backyard. We've and Ruto understands it, and I think Ruto has understood that better than any other of these presidential hopefuls, and that is why he's making inroads, and especially in areas, because you see, when we are talking about Nyanza, we are talking about South Nyanza, we are talking about North Nyanza. And traditional, or rather the traditional Luo Nyanza, and then you see there are these other regions that are not, Luo populated, like Kisii. We have Suba, not Suba, but the southern part of Nyanza. And you've seen that Ruto has taken advantage to make as more visits as he can, especially in those areas that are not predominantly Luo occupied. On the other hand, when we're talking about the Rift Valley, we are talking about the Rift Valley from the South Rift all the way to the North Rift. And when we talk about the South Rift, there is where we have the Kipsigis, the Nandi, and all that one, areas that are very affiliated to the deputy president. But then we have the Pokots, we have the Turukanas, we have the Rendiles, we have all these areas of Marsabit, Isiolo, and up there. And you've seen much as the other day we saw Martha Karua visiting Uasin Gishu, that is within at the heart of Rift Valley. But then Raila has taken this approach where he wants to beat it from the flanks, where he's like we saw him in Marsabit. The other day we saw him in Isiolo. We are seeing him in Pokot, and all those regions that are of course within the rift, so that it he wants to interfere with that tally that is the 2.4 votes that is in the Rift Valley. So yes, strategically you would want to get all these other votes that are without or that are outside your strongest opponent's stronghold. But then you may also want to attack so that it doesn't appear like, or then there is no this narrative of you never asked for our votes. If you would have asked for our votes, then we would have given you our votes. But then when we look at all these regions, and especially within the Rift and within the Nyanza region, they are also cosmopolitan, areas. When we are talking about Kisumu as a voting bloc, we do not just have Luos within Kisumu. We have Kalenjins, we have Luyas, we have all these other tribes, Kikuyus and all that. When we are talking about Eldoret, that is within Uasin Gishu, it's a cosmopolitan region. So we have all these other tribes that have settled within that particular area. So you may not want to assume that particular region or rather that particular area because you think that it is predominantly of a particular tribe. But then you would want to attack it. You would want to venture into that particular region because we have other tribes, and it does not necessarily mean that because my brother here comes from the same backyard with me, I'm going to vote him. I'm going to vote for him because because we share the same background. I may not vote for him because I don't like the shape of his nose. I may not vote for him because I do not like that he's a political analyst and I'm an advocate. So there are other variables like our sister who's just left. She says there are other variables like the gender, like the gender card that then is going to or I may have interacted with your manifesto and I just like your manifesto. I may have interacted with your ideologies and I just like them. My brother here has talked about us interrogating the past. I may have walked this journey with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and I just like the way he does his politics. I just like the way he fought for multipartyism, and you see the second liberation and all that. Not necessarily because he's from, because he's my kinsman, but because I like the journey that he's walked as a leader, and I share in his ideologies. So yes, it is true. 2.4 million votes are there in the Rift Valley. It is true that 2.1 votes are there in Nyanza. It is those votes are votes that are up for grabs. Each of these presidential candidates have to visit those backyards and ensure that they fish as many votes as they can. Okay. Yes. I think the issue of voter numbers is one that is very important. That is what is troubled the IBC, of course, when they were releasing the voter register audit. So I don't know if that clip is ready. We can hear what the IBC talked about when they were saying that we need now to follow this direction and not this direction.
Most of the malpractices was a result of the physical register. And we believe that using the digital register will cut down all those malpractices where the presiding officers have knowledge of who has not voted and the ID numbers, and they are able now to activate the details into the KIMS kit and allow malpractices to happen. It's not possible.
We're talking about physical register on one hand and digital register on one hand. And both of the same are replica of one another. The question is which one can be abused and which one cannot be abused. And if you ask me, it is the physical one that can be abused.
Can you hear the IBC commissioner saying, if I look at one hand, I have physical registration of voters and the digital registration of voters, and if I look well, which can be manipulated, is the physical register. And it's about a game of numbers. And we've also seen a situation and claims that voters are being transferred, into a certain place to favor certain political candidate. I don't know what you take of the statement by IEBC that they are standing firm that we know the physical register of these numbers can be manipulated, but now when we put them on the digital way, they will not be manipulated. Will you buy to that?
I totally disagree with IBC because we should not we should be looking at this whole idea from the eye of reality. When we talk of digital identification of voters, this is technology and it is bound to fail in some situations. It has failed before. And like I told you earlier on, Chris, even when IBC was trying to do the mock transmission of results of how they intend to do it on August 9, at Bomas with the representative of presidential candidates, it failed in Nairobi. So I don't know why IBC will insist that it will go with the digital register when the key players in this election are saying that we are comfortable with a manual backup. All we need to do is a consensus among the players, so that at the end of the day, we don't end up with lamentations from certain candidates that we were for the idea that we wanted a manual register backup, and you didn't factor that in, and that's why we've lost onto this election. If all the key players are agreeing that, okay, we are okay with the manual register, then that is fine. And even number two, most importantly, the High Court gave IBC direction that should the electronic voter register fail, you have the option of using the manual register. So if IBC deviates from that High Court directive, then decides to go the digital way, and then it fails, that is an avenue for somebody to go to court and challenge the whole process, and the whole election will be annulled. So I think IBC should not take us to a place that we wouldn't want to go as we head into the election.
Okay, Viko, have we learned from our initial mistakes as in conduct of the general election? Have we learned from what has failed before, or are we seeing a repetition of correcting on what we failed before, but yet again putting in another loophole in regards to the preparations?
My brother here has talked about the system having failed before. And in fact, the system did not just fail before, but then we even have a determination, just like he said, and you saw me scrolling my phone, I was looking for that authority from the High Court, where it said that an integrated system in any election is key. Because technology is bound to fail. It's not something that will be unique to Kenya as a jurisdiction only. It's something that has happened even in other jurisdictions that are more that are more advanced in technology than we are. It is a fallacy that the IBC would come out and say that they are going to entirely rely on the electronic on the electronic system. They themselves have come in to admit that there are more than 40,000 stations that more than 40,000 stations that are not connected to the 3G or even 4G internet. And it becomes then worrisome that the IBC that has admitted that, yes, we do not have very many stations that are not connected to the internet, very many stations that it will become problematic for them to transmit the results, to then come and then tell Kenyans that they are going to entirely rely on the electronic on the electronic register. It is important that we have a backup. Much as they're saying that between the electronic register and the manual register, then it becomes very easy to manipulate the manual register. I can tell you for a fact that between those two systems, if there's a physical register that has been provided by the IBC and someone tampers with it, it becomes very easy for us to tell this entry here has been tampered with, because this is not the original format with which we as the IBC released it. But then I can assure you that you remember the issue of the bug. Was it in 2013? Where during the elections we could see that the results of President Kibaki, former President Kibaki, was increasing by a particular percentage. Yeah, and then it kept on increasing like that, and even in 2017, when the Supreme Court called on the IEBC to open their servers, they refused to open their servers. So it is something that we have an experience with. And that is why when the IEBC was calling for the opening of the servers, we wanted to verify, or rather NASA then wanted to verify of the numbers. And I'm very sure if those servers were to be opened, what would have been presented to the Supreme Court as at that time would have been physical copies to show that this is how things, this is how things play out. This is how things played out. On the verifiability of the information that is contained in the physical register and that which is contained in the electronic or the digital register, I can bet for a fact that it will be very easy for purposes of verifiability and accountability for Kenyans to have a physical register. Let us harmonize these two systems. Let us integrate both of them. And like my colleague has said, it is something that has been decided by the High Court. That High Court decision has not been set aside. It has not been varied. It is, and that is why you've seen members of the civil society who have rushed to court, and especially on that very question of the digital register and the digital register and the physical register. And I can assure you that they are going to win that case.
Okay.
They are.
I think that is a very good point to make out. And of course, so much is being talked about the IEBC preparedness and the August polls, because they are against time, 45 days to the general election, to be able to put their house in order, to be able to conduct a free, fair and transparent election. And before we conclude this particular discussion this morning, I also want to get your opinions in regards to the entire setup. You can see us only 1 month and some few weeks away from the general election, the entire conduct, right from the Kenyan people, the politicians, and the Independent Election Boundaries Commission, the IEBC. What do you take of our preparedness as a country now, not as the IEBC, as we conclude this particular section?
Briefly, Chris, Kenyans are naturally good people. And being good people as they are also looking for good leadership. And therefore, this is a time for us to come together as a country and decide what is good for us as a country going forward. Because as things are today, I think we have a lot of areas in the country that need to be fixed. Right from even the institutions of government. I don't understand how things are now happening, because it's now crazy. Just 2 days ago, or a week ago, I saw the Commission of University Education revoke, let's say, for instance, Senator Sakaja's degree, terming it as invalid. A week later, the same commission writes a letter to withdraw the letter they had sent to IBC, terming that his degree as being invalid. Now, you then wonder, at which point was the CUE speaking when it revoked Sakaja's degree? So it tells you that as a country, I think a lot of our institutions are on its knees. I think they are failing, and therefore we need a government that will restore sanity to the people of Kenya. And that begins with electing people with credible records of reforming this country. Two, that is for the people of Kenya. Then number two, for the IEBC, you owe Kenya, because it is not a favor that we are asking. We are facilitating you with taxpayers' money, and we also expect good work and accountable leadership based on giving us free, fair, and even verifiable election results, so that at the end of the day, we will say that the people of Kenya have made a choice, and this is the leader they want to lead them. So just in case things don't work well in future, we will be comfortable that this is a decision we rightfully made as people, as Kenyans, and not sort of a decision by IBC onto the people of Kenya. And then lastly, on the part of our leaders, I think we are also thinking a bit low, because what we need to sell to the people of Kenya is the manifesto, the agenda of what we need to do to the people, so that they can have an informed choice of who they want to elect. But when we see the leaders abandoning the agenda, then they start attacks on personal character of each other. I think we are losing the focus at that point. And our leaders need to do much than they are doing today, so just so that we ensure that we feed Kenyans with the right information they need to make their choices. And the very last point I'll speak of is about the media as well, because in any society, the media plays a very critical role in enlightening the society. Where the leaders fail, I think it is the role of the media to let Kenyans know what is happening. And to some extent also disappointed by the media when you let these leaders get away with things without interrogation. Because you see these leaders, somebody who has been into office as a deputy president, complaining on top of a car that the price of basic commodities have risen beyond reach for the common mwananchi, yet he's in office. But the media does not question this person to explain to us why is he earning a salary as a deputy president, because that is I cannot ask the deputy president as a Kenyan citizen, but the media can do that role for us, so that we can then make judgment based on the answer this guy is going to give us. Because it is crazy for somebody who has been into office for 9 years to come and cry with Kenyans instead of presenting solution. It's much crazy. So I think that is something we need to look at into as we get into the elections. But generally, like I said, Kenyans are good people. Kenyans are going to make a good choice, and at the end of the day, after the general election, most importantly, peace will prevail, and we will build our country to prosperity.
All right, I think that is your extreme parting shot. So you just, I think you had to say everything. Perhaps could be waited somewhere and told, why did you not say this? Yes, so finish with you, Biko.
Yes. You want us to give our take on three things: the electorate, the political parties, and lastly the IEBC. Like my colleague here said, Kenyans are good people, yes. But then I would want to agree him to that extent that Kenyans are good people, but then Kenyans are not good voters. They are not good voters, and we are talking about Kenyans coming out here and voting. The things that excite Kenyans about voting are very peculiar things, which one would not really understand. Kenyans will come out to vote because there's a politician who came and gave them 50 shillings. In my backyard, huwa wanasema mimi ule mwenye yake nimekula ndo mwenye nitapigia kura, and they say it in my native language, and it comes out really funny. So Kenyans will come out to vote not because they're they will have their own persuasions for why they'll come out and they will come out and vote. I would want to urge Kenyans to come out in big numbers and vote for whatever leaders that they will have selected. Political parties are not yet prepared for these elections, and especially the big political coalitions. They are not prepared. And I'll draw an example from what happened in Marsabit yesterday with the Azimio coalition, and even what is happening this morning insofar as harmonization of the various parties within the coalition is concerned. They are clearly still not prepared, and if elections were to happen today, I can assure you that there will be a lot of confusion, and especially within the big political coalitions. So they are not prepared. They need time. They should move with speed. They don't have speed. They don't have time on their side. They should move with the speed to harmonize, and especially the various political parties within the bigger coalitions, to ensure that then they have a team that is ready to face their opponents come August 9th. Insofar as the IEBC is concerned, of these three variables that we are talking about, the IEBC is the least prepared. Much as they keep on, coming to media and assuring Kenyans that, oh, we are prepared for this, we are prepared for that. Remember, they ought to have released the register for verification, and so that Kenyans can adequately participate in the process of verifying their details. The same. I'm not quite sure whether the same has been done. They ought to have gazetted the various individuals who are vying for the various positions. The same is yet to be done. And we are talking about less than, because we are talking about 44 days, but then 2 days to the elections. Political parties, or rather the politicians, are supposed to have stopped campaigns. So we have 2 days to the elections where campaigns ought to have stopped. So we are talking of roughly around 40 days. So 40 days to the elections, and the IEBC is still giving us this information that is contradictory with the other one. We still have people going to court to question the processes that the IEBC is taking. So if the court is going to give its determination, let's say in the next 1 week or in the next 2 weeks, the IEBC has to comply with the directions of the court. Yeah, so that one, of course, again brings in a totally different matrix altogether. So the IEBC ought to put its house in order as soon as is possible. And like we said at the beginning of this show, that the buck stops with the IEBC. The buck stops with the systems that they put in. The buck stops with the leadership that is of the IEBC. So the IEBC, of these three variables that we are looking at, the IEBC is the least prepared, and they ought to up their game. Yes.
Okay, I think that is a good point to wind up this discussion. Of course, the preparedness of IEBC will be judged in the next few weeks as they continue to, update Kenyans on what we expect ahead of the August polls. And that is where we wind up the discussion on the state of politics this morning, right here on Kirk in the Morning. And we'll be, not having our entertainment segment as usual this week, but we return next week due to unavoidable circumstances. This week has been difficult for that segment, but it will be coming to you back again next week. So be ready for that as we compile everything and bring to you what best you should watch every Friday morning. But before we conclude, I want to leave you with the Health Insight segment. This week we'll be highlighting the mental health awareness. Of course, it's been a major factor among the young people, different things happening because of the mental health. And our reporter Aida Monzatsi has something prepared for us so that you can be able to understand how you can maneuver in between, the mental health situation that also leads to depression.
We are getting into relationships to get approved, to get validated, to get people who will love us at a point when we don't even love ourselves. We are getting into relationship as a need, not as a want. So I struggled with my relationship because one, I was looking for somebody as a need, like they will fill the gap in my space. So going, and then this is another human being who has their own boundaries and they know themselves better. So in that process, when you don't feel like they're giving you what you're giving, you feel like these people are draining you, you feel like they are shortchanging you. So I'd say most of the time with relationship, especially among young people, is they don't know that they need to love themselves first before they extend hand to invite another person. So they're getting into relationship when they have emotional wounds from their family, from abused family. So you realize you're dating somebody who came from a family where violence was at the norm of the day. So when they get mad with you, they turn violent. We have had cases of people, stabbing their partners, and sometimes gets to cases where we have, buried so many souls because of, domestic violence. And these are behaviors people have adopted most of the time from their homesteads. So I'd say my biggest struggle in my relationship or relationships I've had that things are not working is because I didn't know myself. I was expecting too much from the other side, and I had given all my powers to other people, to decide whether I'll be happy. That if Derek has to smile, it has because of my friend.
Someone, yeah.
I have to do something to make them happy so that I'll be happy, and that is a wrong thing. If you have to depend on another person so that you're happy, then your mental health is at a big stake. You need to first of all be happy with yourself, contented with yourself, to allow another person to bring another aspect of, by the way, you are a happy person. It becomes a compliment. But if you wait for them first, then it means everything you'll be doing is based on what the world says. If the world says you don't look good, that is when you get anxious. You start thinking about putting something on your face, changing how you dress, because they said this and this. That is what is disturbing most of us outside there. Trying to please. You want to spend more than you're earning as a young person because you need to make her happy.
And even get into loans and debts.
Yes, young people, we are borrowing loans left, right and center. We have exhausted all the platforms of borrowing money because we want to please our friends, we want to please our boyfriends and our girlfriends, because the world says if what we are watching, Kim Kardashian is spending this amount on this, on shoes, why should I not do that? Let me go and borrow this and borrow that so that I can be able to please look good before people, not before myself, before people. That's terrible, and that is what is killing us young people outside there. Yeah. On the society level, it is important for the community to just understand, first of all, it is okay not to have a car at the age of 22. It is okay to cry as a man. A man is a human being who is emotional. It is okay for you to seek help. It is okay for you to chase dreams and fail and start all over again. And it's okay to express any emotion. Are you happy? Are you angry? Are you sad? You don't feel like talking to people? That is an emotion that should be let out. So the society should accommodate. Let us not be judgmental.